What's up, dude?
Good morning. Good morning. Not much. Just ready to do some things.
Oh yeah, got your Unreal Engine fired up. We're on the finale.
Well, this is the last activity, but I got a feeling we're going to be back.
Oh, here's encore, encore. So good is we're gonna do some more. Yeah, I think we definitely will cover some more on this one.
Hmm.
But this is activity 5 of the Hour of Code projects that we developed with Epic Games. Steve Isaacs, our buddy, who is with Epic Games now, so we get to say that we developed it with Epic Games.
Yeah, congratulations to Steve. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he'll be doing awesome things for education and 3D
Hmm.
3D environments and design. So definitely excited to show you guys this. So we're going to have so Gatlin, you're going to walk us through where to get the downloads and all that stuff, right?
That is my plan. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So again, these Hour of Code programs we developed for getting students involved in learning computer science concepts, but in the context of a game, something that kind of resonates with their world and makes the necessity of this programming stuff kind of more natural because it fits inside a world that they're familiar with and kind of opens up their eyes to, hey, wait, I can also make content instead of just consuming content and being the viewer. So that's what this is all about: empowering and educating. So without further ado, turn it over to you. We ready for the screen?
We got it. Hey, look at that. We're live. All right, cool.
Yep.
So as mentioned, this is activity 5 of 5. I would love to jump back in here. There's some fun things that I've actually hidden inside of here, and some of the other developers have hidden in here too that we haven't really exposed in these activities. So let us know if you find them for starters, and let us know what other things you'd like to see us do with these, because this is just the beginning. It's pretty wild. So where can you get this is the question. If you haven't already picked this up, you can go ahead and download the Epic Games launcher, and if you go over to the Epic Games area right here, the Unreal Engine, and then come up here into your marketplace. So 1 and then 2 up here, and inside the marketplace, you can do a quick search over here in the top right, this one right here. And in here, if you just type in Hour of Code, you will find this project. And this is the project that I'm going to be jumping inside of. So you can just download it. It's totally and completely free. The engine is completely free. It's super awesome. Once you actually have that, or while you're waiting for that to download, you can also do a search for Hour of Code Unreal Engine, and you should very easily be able to find it this page. Now, this is the cover page for this. If you scroll down, we did this one, activity 1, activity 2, 3, 4, and now we are on 5. So the idea here is that we're actually going to polish up a couple little things. We're going to make this a bit more user-friendly so that the player actually knows what's happening. And then we're also going to play with widgets. If you are kind of confused on what a widget is in Unreal, that's fine. It's actually pretty much just a heads-up display piece that's going to show up on screen. They're incredibly powerful, and they're great for telling your player what it is that they have, what they need to pick up, what's available in the world, and what's kind of going on. We're going to add just a couple of things in here. There's going to be 4 specific things we're going to add. And then the last little thing in here too, it does say that we're going to publish the game. Now, when I say publish, what we're actually going to be doing is packaging the game. So once it's done, you'll actually be able to send it to your friends and your family, and they'll be able to actually play your game with everything that you've kind of built inside of it. So this is really cool. Something about that really quick before I jump into it is that you will need a couple of things. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the documentation. Let me show you where I'm picking up the documentation. Sorry. If you click on these blue letters down here at the bottom of it, it will take you to this page. And this is where you can pick up the student guide. I'm going to be walking through the student guide. Said student guide looks very similar. Looks like so. Now, at the very end of this, so I want to kind of give you a little preface. So while you're working through this project, you can kind of be downloading some stuff in the background as well. If you come way down here to the bottom, you will find a little section on page 34. And inside of here, there are a couple of links. So where you can pick up Visual Studio, which you're going to need to actually package it up, and then a quick tutorial on how to actually install it, and then a couple of other little images down here to let you know the 2 pieces that you're for sure going to need to be able to package this up. This one right here looks like a link. It is not actually a link. So if you click on it, you'll just get a 404 error. So those are fun if you want one of those. So let's get that one out of the way. This is that first link. This is what that page will look like. So Visual Studio 2019 as of this recording. So there's that. It's a free download. And then this is the page that will actually walk you through doing a quick little setup. It's really super, super easy. You can do it in about 5-10 minutes at most. It's not too tough. So with all of that stuff ready to go, let's actually jump into the game engine. So there's a few housekeeping things that we need to do before we actually jump in here. If you're starting from a project that you've been working on, if you've done 1, 2, 3, and 4 already, some of this stuff is going to be kind of superfluous and you don't need to do it. But if you're jumping in now, I want you to be all set up and ready to go. So a couple things we're going to do. Up here in the top left, we're going to come into Window and come down here into Levels. And we're going to open this window up. You should get a big floating window like so. Excuse me. And level 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're just going to go ahead and turn these on. So I'm going to turn the little eyeballs on here. And then I can just right click on these and I can come down and say, where is it at? Change streaming method. And we're going to say always loaded. So do that one on 1, do this on 2, 3, and 4 as well. There is one other little caveat that I want to bring up while I'm doing this. And there. Excuse me, having a hard day this morning. Get some tea here. Okay, there we go. One of the caveats is you'll notice that this level 4 is now like bolded, and we don't want that one to be bold. We actually want persistent level to be bold. So what I'm going to do is, if I can get my cursor to come back, there we go. I'm going to double click on the persistent level. The other caveat is that in this lesson 5, we're going to be doing some things with the code, and they're set up so that when the player loses life, they actually respawn. Well, there's also a section in there where the player, when it touches this kill Z, which we talked about in activity 1, when they hit that, they're actually going to respawn as well. So to make sure that the code is for sure going to work, what I'm going to do is let's just take our levels and just dock it up here. We're going to come up here into our settings. And we're going to open up our world settings because this is a total vanilla world. I haven't actually done anything to it yet. You'll get a new little dialog area over here on the far right. So this world settings. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to search for kill Z. You can either find it here under world, or you can do a search up here at the top. You can find it. You can see there's this kill Z right there. So what I want to do is I want to be able to turn that on, and I can't turn it on unless I actually, there's a little opening spot right below it usually by default. So if you open this up, there's this enable world bounds check. I'm going to turn that on, and then I'm going to set my kill Z to something like -500. So what this means is that when the player hits this kill Z, it's just like an invisible plane that hangs out in the world. It's 500 units below 0. So as soon as it hits it, it's just going to reset the character. So I just want to make sure that's set up as well, just in case I end up not loading up my level 1, because level 1 has kind of a fake one built inside of it. So a little bit of housekeeping. So a couple things to kind of know. Having both of these on and set up, we shouldn't have any problems moving forward. If you do, let us know though. We'll troubleshoot it, help you get that all figured out. Now, the other thing I want to do, which I'm not going to do, but I would definitely suggest doing, is to come down here and hit this save all, because I've done quite a few changes, and if Unreal crashes, I'm going to have to do it all over again. So we'll edit that out if I have to. Put that in there. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the actual pages here. So the idea today is that, so I'm on page 2, is that what we're going to do is we're going to set up the coins that we've kind of been putting in the world and the gems, which we haven't really talked about yet, so that they actually show up on screen as the player collects them. There are also 2 other items that we need to kind of deal with. There's the key, which will allow us to actually walk into the final door, and then there's a jump boost that will allow us to jump higher. So we want the player to know that they've actually collected those after they've collected them, just in case they save the game and walk away, or they've got to go eat dinner or whatever it happens to be. So let's kind of play the game and get to that point. I'm going to go ahead and just start here. Up here in the top right, I'm just going to make sure that my play is also set to current camera location. So go ahead and just say play. Wait for it. Whoop, there we go. All right, so this was activity 1 here. We set up these little platforms, and if you fall in, you reset. Run across here. I'm going to hold shift so I can run a little faster. Activity 2, we went ahead and did this checkpoint. So if I jump off, or if I fall down in there, I'll actually just reset there as opposed to the beginning of the game. So I'll take our little platform over. There we go. So activity 2 is also setting up these platforms. Oh, wait for it. so that we now know how to get platforms to move using the sequencer, which is nice. So this was the end of 2, and then if I hit this, this is 3. So this is our little jump boost. So I can't make that jump just yet, but if I collect this, now I can make it up there. So that jump boost, we're going to have that show up on screen as a little HUD element. These coins will also update, so we'll set those up. Grab those ones, that one, this one, another jump boost, grab that, so we'll jump up here. A few more coins to lead the character up. And then this blue piece right here, this is a key, so we're going to have this show up on screen as well as a HUD piece. We get a noise, but we don't actually get the piece yet. Then we'll be able to walk over here and jump across, jump across. We do have one HUD element already. If you don't have the key, you get a message here that says, hey, by the way, you can't actually go in here. You need a key. So I'm going to hit E. I do have the key. And you will notice down there in the bottom left of the screen, I now have a little key icon. So that's kind of our hint of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to make that one show up at the beginning when we actually play it. And then the last little piece that is also a HUD is when we hit this goal right here, we get a congratulations. We see how much time it took, 350 coins. Oh, there's a little bit of code, something going on in here. And then the gems. Looks like I was playing with this. So I got a lot of coins. And then the actual gems. And then it lets the player know that they hit escape. They can go ahead and quit out. And we're going to set that up as well. And at the very end, we're going to package it all up so you can send it off to your friends. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit escape for now. And I'm actually kind of curious. Let's do a little bit of digging here. I got a feeling one of these coins, if I select this, let's go into the details here, see how much this coin is actually worth. And it doesn't say on there. Ah, okay, interesting. We're going to figure out where that's actually at. 350, because I didn't catch that many of them. Good times. All right. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead and do the activity. Weird. I wonder what's up with that. This is bug fixing. This is really what this one is all about anyway. So
that'll
yeah,
be fun. That'll be fun to figure out.
Yeah, I don't know. Good times. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's see here. So on page 3, we got these pieces set up. Okay, so that one should have been. I need somebody to go through my paperwork for me so I know right where I'm at. Okay, page 8. All right, cool. So we're on page 8. So let's play. So what we're going to do is I can press the 5 key on the keyboard, and this is just going to snap me to this location. If I hit 1, it would actually take me back to the beginning of the level. So if you need to restart, you can always come here. And we're going to get the key to work first. So we're going to need the key in our actual world. So down here in the content browser, we can just open up our hour of code, and we're going to come down into our blueprints. And then this one right here, this little BP key activity for end, I'm just going to drag that into our world. Just kind of bring it up just a little bit. So when we collect this key, it's the same key that I was grabbing just a moment ago. It will allow us to actually open up the door. The problem is when we're looking at the UI while we're playing this, we don't have any indication down here that we can even pick up a key. So how do we even know that we're going to be able to open up a door later? Well, as the designers, we know what's going on, but the player may not actually know that. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up some of the code to make that happen. And what we need to kind of understand is how this is actually behaving to begin with. So if you're on page 9, it does let you know that you should open up the blueprint for this guy. So with this one selected, I'm just going to hit Control E on the keyboard. Wait for it, and it'll open this up. And most likely you'll be brought up to this little area where it's blue and it says Activity 5, make the key icon opaque. So this little node right here is telling the game that the key can be picked up and that you actually have the key, or the key has been picked up. So we're just going to take this wire, real simple and easy. We're just going to drag it down here. And what this is doing down here, and I will zoom in on it a little farther, is that we are actually looking at the HUD information. And specifically in that HUD, we're looking at the texture of the key, and we're sending that key, to actually be completely and totally opaque. So there's an alpha channel down here that says, okay, we got a red, green, and blue, but now we want to make it visible and actually turn that onto a total of 1 so we can see it completely. So there's that. Now, if you're following along from activity 4, you can take all 3 of these nodes right here, and you can literally just copy and paste them into your code and hook them up the same way that we've got this hooked up here. Let's see if I can get a decent shot of it. There we go. And once it's hooked up like this, you'll be good to go. It'll do the same exact thing. If not, you can always just use this one as well. So it's really easy.
Just a quick note on this. You kind of jumped ahead a little bit. So you're a little touching on page 15, 16 on the key opaqueness.
Oh.
The next step would be like going into the door blueprint.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, yes. So let's talk about what the door does. All right, so let's look at the door. So you can actually hit F and zoom in on it. Set that back where it goes. So this door right here, the whole thing is a blueprint as well. And this is what's actually interacting with the key too. So if you got this one selected, let's hit Control E and look inside of here. There we go. Oh, that looks familiar. That's much better. So this is a lot of information, and that's fine because there's a lot of cool things going on in here. But what we are most concerned with is this little yellow area over here. This right here will actually make the key icon do something kind of the opposite of what we just did. And you can see, again, we have a reference to the HUD information, the texture. And in this case, if we click here, we can see that this is setting it to be very transparent. So at a 0.3, so we can kind of see through it. What we want to do is we want to make this one actually show up on screen at all times. The door is actually setting it back to being this level. So we want it here to begin with, opaque when the character actually picks it up, and then transparent-ish again when we actually open up the door. So there's that part. So I'm guessing I probably need to go into the game mode, huh? All right. So let's talk about what this code is actually doing. So I'm going to try and zoom out, not that far. There we go. That should work well enough. So if you follow this little blue wire, so I'm going to hover over it so you can see it. So this little blue wire goes all the way back and it comes up here. And what it's doing is it's telling us, because we've already set up the code, that this HUD is actually referencing all the way back to another place, and it's going back to the game mode. So the game mode is actually what's controlling the HUD showing up on screen. So this door talks with the game, says turn this on, off, or change the opacity of it, and then the game mode will actually control that. So kind of what does that look like? So let's take a little bit of an analogy here. So if you remember, we have our character, which runs around. We have the player, which is you and I, and the keyboard and mouse, and then we have the game mode. So the HUD is something that just kind of sits on top of the game mode, and it controls what we can see. So if I zoom in on this, we can see a little bit better. So the HUD in this case is going to control how many coins we have, how many gems we have, our jump boost, and in this case, the key is what it is. So this is all kind of a widget that kind of sits on top of the screen between the game and us. So you can say it kind of sits right about here-ish, but it's a little easier to understand if we just set it right on top of there. All right, so let's go back into here. All right. So, all right, so let's look at the actual game mode. So we're going to come back to the actual game, and down here inside of the content browser, down here at the very bottom, there's this third person BP, and inside of here is a blueprints folder. And this is the actual game mode. That is this right here. So this piece right here is what we're about to walk into. So if we double click on that, we get a whole bunch more code, and specifically the one we're looking for is this spot right here. So when the game starts up, it's actually creating that widget. Okay, we're creating a variable for, or setting a variable for it so we could reference it later. And then we're just adding it to the viewport. So we've been doing this throughout activity 1 through 4. We just haven't had it at a position where we could see it until we actually started to pick up that key and then use it at the door. So this has been happening in the background the whole time, but we haven't needed to use it. So let's actually look at the widget, this piece right here. So this HUD piece, we're going to take a look at this and see how this is built. So come back over here to the content browser. I know we're jumping back and forth a lot. Hopefully this is making sense. Let me know if there are questions in there, Cleverlike. We're going to need them.
I'm watching it.
Cool. So inside of our hour of code, we have a folder for widgets. And inside of here, let's zoom in on a little bit. We have one called this WHUD. This is what this node is actually referencing. And this, I'm going to just double click it, is what this HUD looks like. Now, this is a blueprint, but it's a little bit different than all the other blueprints that we've been playing with so far. When we're playing with things like the key, we have like a 3-dimensional object to play with. When we're playing with things like the HUD, we've got 2 dimensions to deal with. So think of this like just a sheet of paper or a piece of transparent plastic that's sitting on the screen, right? So inside of here, there's a couple things we want to talk about because the anatomy of this is a little bit different. So over here on the left, we have this little spot right here. So this is the hierarchy. This is everything that's actually inside on the screen. Now, we don't see anything right now because, again, it's all been set as invisible. Okay? This right here is kind of the canvas on screen. Specifically, this is what the screen actually is. So so this area right here. So this is what we see as a player. And down here in the corner, we're going to start to make things visible. The last thing that I want to talk about are these two over here. So the details panel, this is just like any details panel that we've played with thus far. If you select something, you'll get information about that thing. And then up here in the top right, we have the designer and the graph. Right now we're in the designer. If we were to go look at the graph, you would see that we have code, or the usual kind of code that we see. So let's go back into the designer real quick. And let's make this key icon actually appear. So over here on the far left, we have a key, we have the jump boost, we have the coins, and we have the gems. So right now they're all set to invisible, as mentioned before. So let's make the key visible. We'll zoom back out. If I select the key, we get a whole bunch of information over here on the right. And what we're looking for specifically is the color and opacity. And you'll see that this alpha is set to 0. And that means this cannot be seen. So let's just take that alpha value and let's just set that to 0.3. And now we can actually see this here. Now that we've got this set up, we're going to go ahead and compile this because we have kind of changed the code in here. And if we go back into our world and I say play, let's make sure I don't land on that key. There we go. Now you can see that we have our key down here in the bottom left-hand corner, and we haven't even picked it up yet. Now remember, we went into the key and we set that so that the opacity would be at 1. Did we do that yet? I've done so many things so far.
Let's see.
Let's bug test this. So if I select it, ta-da, cool. Now you can see that it shows up quite a bit more opaque down there in the bottom left. So this lets the player know that there is a key available. We now have the key, and then when I use the key, it goes back to being a bit more transparent. That is a bunch of information.
Amazing. Yeah, well, see, one of the takeaways from this lesson is taking big ideas, big tasks, and breaking them down into their small individual pieces. So, you know, like if you stop and take a breath with all this, and we're like, okay, you know, you start to, rather than make it some requirement that isn't absorbed into your requirements, you know, you kind of own it and say, okay, we need to show the user that there's a key to collect. So that's a little too vague for the computer to understand. So then you have to dig a little deeper and be more specific about what you want that to be like. So we want a graphic that is transparent, you know, semi-transparent, that'll show the user that they haven't collected a key. And then when they collect that key, we want to change that image so that it's fully opaque and solid color, so it looks like they did collect it. And when they use it, we want it to go back to the empty state. You know, so the idea of like, hey, we need to show the user about this key. You need to drill down a step further and into the specifics. And every specific is just a teeny tiny little piece. You just have to kind of go find the next step and the next thing, change it, next step, next thing, change it. And so we're walking you through all those steps. But the idea is that you take away, like, I know the things I need to do, and I'm going to go figure out how to do each one.
Absolutely. Yep. So let's do the same thing. We're just going to basically repeat the process, but we're going to use the jump boost instead. So we're going to need a jump boost in the actual world. Let's go and just move the key over a little bit. Let's go into our blueprints, and down here, the jump boost. So I'm just going to drag that in there. So we know that there's a jump boost in there. We want to let the player know that there's a jump boost in there. So the HUD contains that information. Remember, this is where that jump boost is living inside that HUD. So what we can do is go back into our HUD blueprint. It's this bad boy right here. And over here on the left, we have our jump boost. Over here on the right in our details, we have our color and opacity. So let's set that at 0.3. And now we have this. When we say compile, go back into our game and play. In the bottom left, now, actually that looked pretty good right there. We can actually see that we have an icon in the corner that says, okay, cool, we have a jump boost that we can pick up. So if we walk over to the jump boost, nothing happens. So problem solving. Where is the information about this jump boost going to make it opaque? And if we actually open up our jump boost, so Control E on the keyboard and open that up, we have a whole bunch more code. Now this seems a little bit daunting. However, we've broken it down really easy. You'll find a little spot right here that says Activity 5, connect B to the play sound at location. That is right above it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag from this wire here, and I'm just going to plug it into this little node. It's a little hard to see because it's transparent right now, but it's this little guy right, if I can get a hold of it, right there. So we're just going to connect this to it. Now, for those of you that understand a little bit of coding, and just to kind of lift the veil, you'll notice that all of this just got disconnected, and that's fine. Okay. Ideally, I would delete this in production, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it because we've actually added it down here in this section as well. So what we're doing is we're basically just rerouting. We don't need this anymore. We're going to use this code down here instead. And what we're doing is we are, again, casting to the game, looking at the HUD, telling the texture for the jump boost to then be completely opaque. You can see this is set to a 1 down here. And then we've got that cooldown timer that we were playing with before. We're toggling the visibility so that it's invisible, setting up the collision so the player can't get at it until that cooldown goes away. And then we're setting that opacity to go back down to just 0.3, checking to see if the player is still alive, and then setting the jump velocity back to normal once it's actually worn off. All right, so we'll compile this. Really all I did was just connect a wire. And that. Let's go back into the game. So now we can tell that we have a jump boost down in the bottom left-hand corner. We can now tell that we have it, and we can jump, move over here. As soon as it wears off, player now knows that visually instead of having to count to 4 or however long it takes. And then I'm being able to jump back down to normal. So there's something else that kind of happened in here. And we actually just introduced a bug. And let me show you what it is. So when we pick this up, we can jump for 4 seconds, right? Like, yay, we can jump nice and high. And it wears off, right? But what if I were to, and let's actually do this with a checkpoint here to save us a little bit of time. All right, so we'll play, walk over that, and we'll grab this. I'm going to go run off the edge real quick. I've still died. You notice I can't jump very high anymore, but that little icon was still lit up. Really subtle thing, but that's what's actually happening there, because I can jump high just fine, but if I accidentally fall off and reset, the player goes, well, I've still got the thing, why can't I do the thing, right? And that happens to be what we're going to play with. And this is why at the very beginning I was like, oh, we want to make sure we set that kill Z to -500 and really kind of talk about that. So what's going on? Let me make sure I tell you what page we're on so you can see where this is at.
All right, 20, 23, 24.
23, 24. Perfect. Thank you, Cleverlike. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So down here.
Yeah, so just to clarify for people, the functionality is correct, but the as far as the player jumping and things like that, but the appearance of still have the jump boost activated, we need to fix. Is that correct?
Yep. So it could be confusing for a player to be like, well, I'm getting such and such information, but the game isn't working the way it says it's supposed to work. So it's a bug, as it were. So we need to fix that. So we're going to jump back into another blueprint, and the blueprint that we're going to jump into is this epic character. So down here into third-person blueprints, and this epic character. This, we'll just double-click this, is this character. So this is what controls this little character, which is awesome. Such a cool little character. I love it. So let's go into the event graph. So up here, and you will notice there's another little section down here that says Activity 5. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on what all of these little pieces do, at least not in this video. We'll definitely talk about it later. So when the game is played, it's actually binding a little event that says, hey, when the player actually hits that kill Z, remember that kill Z that I was changing earlier? What I want you to do is to fire this code. So or this event. Sorry, this is an event. So we're going to fire this and we're going to cast to the third person game mode. And we're going to do the same thing we were doing before. We're going to look into the HUD, look at that texture, and then set the opacity to be nice and low. So essentially we've got kind of a fail safe. So what's happening is that when we collect that thing, we've got about 4 seconds to use it and then it wears off. But if the player ends up dying, we also need to reset it as well. So now that we have this, and it's literally just connecting that right there, we'll go ahead and say compile, come back into here. So now when we play, and I, over my checkpoint, collect this and then jump off the edge, as soon as my player dies, you'll notice that that now becomes transparent, and I still can't jump high. So very small tweak, but it's one of those things you're like, oh yeah, the player needs to know. So we're letting them know.
Yep, that's part of the topic, is to put the polish on the game. So, you start to get one layer deeper, a little more detail, and don't brush over these things when you know they exist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And as mentioned in the previous video too, like the Epic Games community is huge and people love helping other people. It's absolutely amazing. So don't be scared to ask. In fact, get out there and ask, because if you don't know and you need to know, there's probably some way to do it. And everything that we're touching in here is just one way to make all this stuff work. There are plenty of other ways to make all this stuff work too, which is pretty wild. There's no one right answer, as it were. Okay. Are there any questions real quick before we go on?
Oh, we're looking good.
Cool. All right, so let's jump back over here real quick. So we've covered two of these. We've got our jump and we've got our key, but we still need the coin and the gem information for our HUD. Okay, so we're almost there. We're about halfway through it. Let's jump back into here. So inside of our hour of code, inside of the blueprints, we have the coin. Zoom out just a little bit, and we have the gem. So we need to bring these into our game world. So I'm going to bring one of the coins over here and lift it up a little bit. Grab the gem, I'm going to lift that up and set that right there. And when we play and we walk over them, we get a noise. So the player knows that they picked them up, but there's nothing on the HUD to actually show that that's there. So let's go back into the actual HUD widget. And inside of here, you will notice that we have the coins and the gems. So we can select one. I'm just going to hold shift and select the other one. So we have both of them selected. And over here on the right, you will see that we have a color and opacity like we had before. And you'll see that the alpha is set to 0. In this case, we want them just to be on screen constantly. So we're just going to set that alpha value all the way up to 1. So I can just click in there, 1, and then enter, and that'll change both of them. And now you see we have coins and gems over here. So cool. Let's go ahead and test this. As they compile, come up here, and we'll say play. Hey, there they are. They're on screen. Perfect. Exactly what we want. So let's pick up a gem. Ta-da! We get 1. Let's go pick up a coin. No, that's weird. Why didn't it work? Wah, wah, wah.
Turn to page 28.
So on page 28, let me scroll down to get to it. We need to set this up so that the coins will actually activate what we need it to do. So let's go ahead and open up the coin blueprint, select it, and Control E on the keyboard. And we have an area right here that says Activity 5, huzzah. And let's talk a little bit about what the code is actually doing in here, because it's doing some pretty fun little things. So much like what we've been playing with prior, let's zoom in over here. When we overlap the coin, we are casting to the third person game mode. Now remember, we're casting to the game mode and not to the character, because the game is going to control and store how many coins we have, which is then going to be shown up on the HUD. So if the player dies, we still have that information around. So casting to the game mode, it's checking to see how many coins we've actually got. Then it's going to add, oh, thank you. Then it's going to add 1 coin to that value that we have. And then it's going to set that number. So if we had 0, we're adding 1, and then we're going to set it to be 1. What we're not doing just yet until now, we're going to connect to this right here, and we're going to update the HUD information. So the coin is actually updating the HUD information, which you can see, if you follow this back, is actually being controlled by the game. So lots of talking back and forth to a couple of things. But to make things simple, we're just going to connect it here. And then to finish it off, we're just playing a sound where the actual coin is at. And then we're just going to kill that coin from the world because we've already logged that we've picked it up. So now that we've connected this, we'll go ahead and just say compile. Let's go back into our world. And if we say play and we walk over the gem still works. Walk over the coin. Hey, 50. Oh, the coins are worth 50. That's where this is coming from. Hey, I've been playing with this, you can tell. Let's actually kind of go in there and take a look and see if we can figure out where the coins. So we're going to go off script here for a little bit. And let's see if we can figure out where the coins are actually coming in from. So we go into the coin and we say coin added coins. So this is a variable right here. Ha. So look over here on the far left. We've got our variables and the added coins. That is this variable. This variable is an integer and its value is set to 50. So we can control how much the coins are actually worth. So let's set this back down to 1. So that'll work. We'll say compile, come back into our world, and then say play. And then we can pick this up. Hey, now our coin reads as 1. Whew, figured out the problem. That was crazy. So here's the math problem. How many coins did I actually set up in the world to end up with a value of 350? There'll be a pop quiz later.
Yeah, seriously. First one in the chat.
Yeah, what do you
wins a smiley emoji.
That's a thing. Okay, so let's actually zip around over here real quick because we are going to test. Well, I guess I could have hit a button. Oh well, this will work. We're going to test this last widget. Remember when we finished the game, we got that congratulations. There was a bunch of information that like popped up on screen. So let's kind of now walk through it from here as opposed to walking through it from the beginning. So let's get our checkpoint just in case I jump off. Hey, that thing's working. Perfect. Hey, there's a coin there. Oh, too far. Let's try that
Hey, that's a nice little trap you set there.
Oh, that was close. 3. So now I can jump up here. Oh, maybe. There we go. 4, 5. Key. That one. 6, 7. Yay, there's the answer. Woo. All right, so then we'll go over here. We'll finish this up. Jump up here. And grab that one and that one. I'm going to avoid those two right there. And then I can open this up. So all of our HUD looks like it's working properly. It's always worth it. So then this last HUD piece, ta-da! So we see took us 55 seconds. We collected 8 coins total, 1 gem, and yay, we win. So let's go ahead and hit escape. So let's talk about this piece here too, that UI that just popped up. So we are on page 30. And if we go into our widgets, we also have this game completion down here. So let's go ahead and double click on this. So this lets the player know that they've actually shown up. And you'll notice there's a couple things that are kind of interesting. This right here says time to completion. It doesn't just say time. It would be one thing. And then our gems and our coins are also there, or escape to quit. And then yay, some kind of message that's actually happening in there. And over here on the left, you can actually see what we've got built. So this is an image that has just been stretched to match the entire screen. We have this end game congratulations. This is just text, and you can find this. So here's image here. Here's text here. So you can just grab anything from this palette and just drag it down into here, or you can drag it over here and set it where you need it and actually get these things set up. Now, I'm not going to jump into how all of this stuff was set up. There is a link at the very beginning of the PDF for Activity 5 that talks about your first hour in UMG, which is the Unreal what does the M stand for? I don't remember what the M stands for. Something. Motion graphics, I think is what it is. Unreal motion graphics, maybe. Don't quote me on that. But it talks about how to set all this stuff up. So you can definitely check that one out. Unreal's great with this stuff. I love it. We have a time to completion right here. We have our coin count right there. We have our gem count, sits there. And then just a little message down here that says press escape to quit. Now this big image is just set at a 0.5 opacity, and it's just set behind all these other pieces. So if you're used to Photoshop, this is just a layer, or Fire Alpaca is another one. There's a couple of other ones out there. Carta is another one. You can kind of think of these as layers. So they're all sitting on top of each other. But because this one is back behind it and set at 0.5, that's what kind of grays out the screen when it actually pops up. So let's look at, see what are we looking at on this one? So this is the time to completion. So let's take a look at this real quick. So with this one selected, you'll notice up here in the top right, there is this is variable. So this text is actually a variable that we can actually play with. And to play with it, we need to actually go inside of the graph. So inside the graph, we can find our time. Here's a little pro tip. If you hit Control F, you get a little find function down here. If we type in time, we'll find all of the nodes. Let's open this up a little bit. All of the nodes that actually have the word time in them. So there's get timer to text. So if we double click that, it will highlight and zoom in on it. So we can see that when this widget is created, right, when the game starts, we are looking at the third person game mode, and then we're doing a couple of things. So 0, 1, and then 2. So the first thing we do is 0 is to come up here, and we're actually setting the time variable. And that is this right here. So we're setting that based on some information. And there's a little bit of math kind of going on inside of here, but it's basically getting the time from which the time of the game started, and then we're adding it to 2 parts. So it says time, and then what the time happens to be, that's our B. And then we're turning that into a string, and then that is being projected into this text. That text is then being displayed here, and then that is then being displayed on the actual screen. There are a couple of other things that are going on in here too. You can see that it's actually getting the coin count as well. So that's coming from the game. Remember, the game is storing that information, and the gem count, which is also being stored in the game. And that information is then being pumped through a bunch of little nodes till we actually get up here. And then that is actually being put on screen. So this variable right here is this right here. You can see this one is also set as variable. Whew. Lots of code today.
This is a good time to kind of point out like patterns and code reuse and things like that. Like, so in computer programming, you're going to notice lots of patterns and things like that. And this is a perfect example. If you're trying to get something to display on screen, you're solving this sequence. These series of blocks might not just not be super intuitive for you the first time you do it, and you'll go through some troubleshooting to figure it out. But once you figure it out and have that working system, that's when you start reusing code, right? That's when you start, now that you've solved it, you don't have to solve it again. You can borrow that solution and adapt it to your next need. So that's the other cool thing about this. So you have this thing that's like huge amount of code, but really the amount that you had to like struggle to figure out is this chunk. And then you're able to leverage that existing, your past problem solving and the existing code that you created to make new code. So recognizing those patterns where things could be reused, where you have recurring themes, things like that, see how they all are exactly matching. Detecting that, wiring your brain to understand and look for those things and save yourself time when you can is very important activity when I think it's useful in everything in life. You don't want to approach everything as a first-time person after you've accomplished it once. So.
Yeah, there's no way I was the first person to figure this out. This is not, nope. We have to go learn from other people. Like, it's just a thing. This engine's been around for many, many years, and it's not the first game engine either. So, and it's not the first time code was written.
Right. And you didn't have to figure out all 3 of these things for the first time either. Maybe you figured out the first one, and then the second one and third ones fell in line much easier because you had the solution already.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Again, the community out there is great. Ask questions. Get a hold of us. It's like, oh, well, that was easy. Like, yeah, it was once you understand it, but trying to figure it out, you can definitely smash the keyboard a few times. Don't smash your keyboards. Okay, so let's kind of walk through what we've just kind of covered, and I'm going to zip all the way back over here. And actually, let's go back a little farther. Let's go right here. So when we started this, we didn't have any, and I'm going to go ahead and make this really large. So we didn't have any information down here in the corner that was going to show up and actually show the player what was happening. So what we're doing is we're actually adding that information in there. So let's grab our checkpoint. So the player now knows that they can pick up some kind of jump boost. Now they know that they have the jump boost. And then as they start to pick up coins, they actually pick up, whoa, coins, they get a sound, and they get a visual setup. So just in case they pause the game and walk away, they know how much they've already grabbed. And if the player dies, that value is actually kept as well. So if I were to hop off the edge here, that 7 value is still there, and I still have the key, which is nice. So these wear off, so we can just use this. There we go. Oh, didn't make it.
Aha.
Or fails. It's my own game, and I can't even do it. There we go.
There you go.
Grab that one.
We're on the edge of our seat here watching this.
It's crazy. You can come up here. Boom. So a lot of that stuff that we just built is just under the hood things that the player doesn't necessarily need to know what the code is doing, but they do need to know what's going on inside the game. So it's always important to like be kind to your players, as it were. All right, so now that we've got this whole thing set up and ready to go, we can actually package this up. So I'm going to do one other. Nope, I'm going to leave that out for now. I was going to turn on this level 5, but I'm gonna wait for a minute.
Yeah. So this would be a good time to kind of pause, and if you're an instructor facilitating this process, using this time, we have like an extension activity kind of listed there on page 20, page 30. Cancel that.
It's in there. I know. I was just reading it.
Yeah. Basically, the extension activity is to get your students to build the game a little more with a little more strategy, put more coins around, place some gems in different places, and things like that. So they can go back to level 1, start adding coins, start building their strategy as a designer. This will help them think more critically about the story that the game is portraying, and also some of the strategy and the hidden little secrets, add some interest to their game. You see, finding this little nook back here to place little bonus gems and stuff like that. So figure out how much time you can allocate to the students kind of making this more their own. What can they do to customize it further? Placing coins, placing the key, telling a story, and then something they're excited to have somebody play that has their own fingerprints on it. And then we get into the packaging part.
Yeah. Because it's the thing that's really awesome about this project, and one of the real reasons that drew me to working with it is that, like, oh, you basically can set up kind of a sandbox to play in. It's not as big as most sandboxes, but it's works well enough to kind of really get the ideas across, which is super fun. So yeah, set it up your game, get it the way you want to. Maybe you want to set up a couple of other moving platforms to get to see some of these other areas out there. Maybe you want to take a ride and like it just takes you way down around. Maybe you take an entire tour of the entire place. Like, yeah, just get super silly with it. Maybe you want to take one, to the top of the building. You can walk around up here. There's plenty of places over here to put items to get your players to actually go out and kind of find some things. So that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so
students love these kind of challenges. They really you see the lights start lighting up when they can have all this creativity, and then they have that pressure of like, what are my peers working on, and I want to make mine cooler. And I think that's good kind of pressure to help you, motivate you to try a little bit harder, come up with
and then also too, before we actually package this up, before we do it, I want to get rid of anything that's extra in here. Like I don't need these couple of pieces here, and I don't need a checkpoint there, because the end of the game is close enough. It should be fine to kind of get them. But I've kind of set up a world, set up some new coins, where I want them to actually be. There is one thing that we do need to do in the code. And so this is down on page 33. So inside of the Epic character, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And over here on the right, there's this whole area for debugging. So this is something that we don't talk about too much inside of the actual like documents, but there are a couple of things in here that you can use to kind of help. And these are the things that I was using as I was building this. So down here, there's like this, when you press the J key, you can actually set your jump to be much higher. So you've kind of got like a debugging. Can I make that jump? Am I going to actually be able to make that jump? And if you connect these, so when you press the J key, it'll actually flop between having, a really high jump value and then being set back to normal. And if you leave this connected when you package the game, it's basically just a little extra code that unless you know you can hit the J key, maybe people won't know that they can, jump even higher. So little debug things you can throw in there and hide from your players, which is kind of fun. There's also another one up here that I was using to actually test what's going on here. I needed to be able to kill off the player. And this is how I was figuring out that jump boost was a problem. I was like, oh, I need to set that up so that when the character jumps off the edge, it still works, right? So this is another way too. So if you need to ever, reset your character really quickly without having to leave the game and jump back in, you can kill the player off. Very simple. And this is basically just applying damage to the self. We are inside the epic character. Okay, this is the blueprint that we're inside of. So it's just killing the player off. It's just resetting the player. So it's like a quick respawn. It's kind of a quick way to do this. The last one, though, this one right here. Now, this one we do talk about in the documentation. So as we're playing this in the actual game engine, when we hit escape, it actually just jumps us out of the game. But it doesn't do that when we actually package the game. So we have to set this up. So this escape, when you press it, we're just going to connect this right here. It says, hey, when you press this, you're just going to quit the game. And you can see that the quit preferences down here is just quit. If you click on this little extra stuff, I don't know how well you all can see this. There we go. You can actually set it to background or quit. Background just means that like when you're on a mobile device, you can just kind of set the application in the background. That's what that will actually do. In this case, we're just going to make sure that it's set to quit. So there's that one. Then, of course, because we've changed the code, we're going to come up here and make sure that we actually compile this. Cool. Now, this is the part where I'm going to step back for a minute. Remember at the very beginning of this, I was talking about these two pages. If you don't download these and install them on the machine that you're actually going to be packaging up, this won't be possible. It's not that big of a deal. You can always just send them the entire Unreal project. They just have to have the Unreal Engine to be able to run it. But this will allow you to kind of package it up and send it off to your buddies as an actual exe. So if you don't have this part, you won't be able to do this next part, just so you know. So I'm going to bring this back over. And to package up the game, this is like probably the least painful thing ever of all time that we've done today. Just come up here into File, come down here into Package Project, and then all we need to do is choose the application in which we want to use. In this case, I'm just going to use Windows 64. So I'm going to hit that. It's going to do a couple of things. It's going to ask me where I want to save this. I do have a folder with this Unreal Engine, and this is going to put it inside the actual project. This is totally fine. We can just kind of put it wherever we want. And then we're just going to go ahead and say select folder down here in the corner, and it's going to go through and actually package up the project. This is a very small project, so it's probably going to take, I don't know, maybe a minute or 3. It's not going to take too long to actually do. What takes the longest usually is compiling all of the shaders, and there actually aren't too many shaders in this. This project was also built to be very, 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 very lightweight, so you can run this on a mobile game. It's very easy to move from one location to another. So yeah, it should be very, very small. So yeah, there it is. There's the whole thing. While this is packaging, I do want to kind of talk about something else that's really kind of fun in here. And this is what I started to do a moment ago, and then I decided not to. Up here inside of the levels, there is this level 5 end. So once you've actually completed the game and you've actually made your own worlds, you can kind of see the way we designed a couple extra hidden things are kind of built inside of here. So just to make sure that I get everything out of here that I wanted to before, the first thing that I added extra was actually this coin right here. So I'm just going to hit undo until I get rid of all of them. So Control Z, I'm just going to keep tapping it till they all go away. They're actually going away.
We're seeing your Unreal Engine.
Yeah. These were going to disappear.
I was answering a chat. This Brandon Kraft is asking if we're going to be doing more. Like, oh no.
I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of some of these because my undos are not working. I think it's because it's trying to compile it quick. I go around and just delete all the extra pieces that I added in here. So I'll grab that one.
Compiling shaders.
Yep, that's going to take a minute. My shaders had been compiled, it would have totally been a lot faster. That's fine. Those, and then I added one over here.
And so what is the process that's happening when it says compiling shaders?
So the shaders, that's a good question. So the shaders are, hold on. The shader is the color. So if I select this guy right here, so this brown color that's on here that it gets darker, like this is the material. It's the shader material. So what we can do to kind of see what that looks like, there is a folder down here that says materials. These are the ones that were used for the hour of code. Liquid Development actually did all of the shaders for this project. So if you come down here into Teacher Marketplace and then go into Assets, dig down a little farther, we want architecture, and then the wall is in here, and then there's a material, a mesh, and a texture. Actually, we're looking at the roof. Let's look at the roof. So there's a material in here. Okay, cool. So we've got this corner material. So if I double click this, and don't panic, we're going to get a whole nother little screen here. This is the actual material. And if I put it on a white, or sorry, if I put it on just a plane, you can see this is just a simple plane. Can't see the backside. This is the actual shader that's inside of here. This is kind of an instance of it, so not to get too technical, but inside of here, we can actually change what the texture looks like. We can actually change kind of the color as well. So if we wanted to, we could come in here and actually tint this. So you can kind of customize a little bit farther. So when it says compiling shaders, what it's doing is it's taking all of this information, because in game, it's kind of fluid and you can kind of change it on the fly. But as soon as you actually send it off to be a game to play, it takes all that information and locks it down so you can't change it in game without some code. So what it's doing is it's writing all of that information so that it's permanent, so that when you actually give it to your friends, it's like, oh, I don't have to try and reload all of this compiled stuff. It's already written as it needs to be, and it's never going to change. So I can just load it instantly without any problems. And it's a lot faster. Yeah, it's doing its thing. Wow, I did not expect it to take this long. All right.
So yeah, so someone says actually shaders takes hours for one level game in Unreal. What is your advice? Yeah, I mean the thing really with that, it seems like what it's doing is calculating all of this stuff so that the end user doesn't have to carry that burden on all those things. So it's an investment as a developer to make it more performant on the different end user platforms.
Yep. And what's really cool is once you compile it once, if I were to repackage the game, it won't do this. So unless I go in and change a couple shaders, and then it'll go, oh, well, which ones do I need to actually change? And there aren't like thousands of shaders in there. That's the instructions that it actually takes to make it. Not to get technical, because it could be very easy, but a shader can take anywhere from 1,000 instructions. Like that would be a lot. But you can also set it so there's quite a few less instructions too. And that makes it more performant in the long run as well. As mentioned, this is very performant for what it is. So it's really nice that it's quick.
The question of what do you do while it's compiling shaders? Go eat dinner or breakfast. Go out for a walk or something like that. Try to maintain the excitement of how close you are to the finish line. And
so you can actually do quite a bit. As you can see, I went through and deleted a bunch of pieces. I went ahead and turned this level 5 on. I'm actually going to right click on it, say change streaming method to always loaded. And then let's actually play the game as the way I had intended it. Y'all don't have to do this. I'm going to hit F11 on the keyboard just to make it big screen. I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard to go back to here, and then Alt P so I can actually play it. So when I built this is the way I kind of wanted the player to kind of explore and work in this. There's a little ball over here that you can actually kind of play with. Let's see if I can actually get over here. So I got to hold shift and jump. Nope, I can't make it. All right. But you can actually push that ball all the way up the stairs and then out into this little hallway. So whenever I'm thinking about building games, specifically a game like this, is that I want to lead the player into the next location. I'm sure you're probably very familiar with a very, Italian fella that collects coins. So that was my idea here, was to kind of lead the player into a place where they can kind of explore, check out some new little spots, see the environment. I love games where they tell you to go explore. Here's one of the little Easter eggs. So check out this door. This one has a lever on it. I don't need a key to get into this one, but I do want to get to that gem back there, right? So there are levers that are built inside of here, so I can walk up to the lever. Now, I don't get a prompt. I'm assuming that the player knows how to actually use the keyboard and the keys, and that's something to kind of understand about your players. Do they understand games in general, or have they never played a game before? If I were to hand this to my mother, she'd probably, one, not know how to walk around the world or how to jump, or definitely wouldn't know how to actually hit the E key just to open that up so that you can actually get in here and then get the gem. Now the gems are a little harder to get at. You actually have to work for them. Oh, there's another one hidden over here. Boom, there we go. Here, and then come up here. So the player could totally miss all that stuff. Grab that one. Oh, am I gonna make it in time? Yeah, cool. There's a couple of them on these moving platforms. Oop, missed it. Grab that one. That one. Now I can make it down to those, but I can't make it back. That one. There's a couple of them hidden back behind here. Grab this one. Here, grab these two. Ooh, close.
Oh, you almost burned yourself on that one.
That one.
All right.
This one. And you can see there's a shadow there because I've got another gem up there in the corner. So using light, oh my gosh, use light all the time. Grab this. Grab these ones. Now I have a checkpoint here. Key. This one, and there's a little hut down there. And that's the reason this checkpoint is here. So I'm leading the player into doing something, and they now have reassurance that they can get back up here. So if I grab that, and if I jump off, boom, and then come in here, and that one opens up.
Whoa. The riches. Now.
Yay. Now I don't have any way of getting back up there. So maybe you guys want to put in something like a moving platform, or maybe
Oh, hit the J key.
except it's not connected.
Oh, you didn't wire that.
So in this case, I do have to jump off the edge and then I come back up to the checkpoint. So that's kind of how that goes. All right, now this one's a little bit tricky. Hey, got in one. That will never happen again.
Yes.
That was one of those ones, even as a designer, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that every time. But I had the key, which is awesome, so I can open this up. And then over here, I actually got a couple of coins on the outside, so I can see where I came from, all the progress I've made. Yay. Here to the other side, grab the other gem. And then hit the goal. So it took me just short of 4 minutes. I got 31 coins. I've got 6 gems. What's your best score, Cleverlike? What do you got?
Oh. Me against you? Oh, what? Well, my guess at your score. Okay. I think you had 27 coins and 9 gems.
I don't remember where. There are a couple of them hidden around somewhere too. I remember where they're all at.
What was it? I don't know.
Yeah, I have to go find them all. So. Yeah, so maybe there's some out there in the background. You find them all over there? Did you find them anything? So, yeah, and you can definitely come in here and kind of play with these, and how did we build them? How do you build them? What is it that you want your players to experience? How long do you want them to take to get through your entire game? As when I'm teaching my students, because I teach at the college level too, we spend an entire term working on a level, and they might take people 5 minutes to walk through it. It may not take very long at all. What is it that you want them to learn? Are you teaching the tutorial pieces of the game? Do you want them just to kind of explore and have fun? Do you expect them to already understand how all the game engine pieces work? That's pretty much what it comes down to. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
now we're going to start the GoFundMe to buy Gatlin some more processing power to compile shaders faster.
Well, it was paused while I was playing, so.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of moving through.
Chugging.
And I guess, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's making good progress. Is there anything else we want to talk about while that's happening, just so we can kind of have this video with the complete,
with everything in it,
round trip done? So
there is one thing, and I would like to jump into it and kind of play with it a little bit farther in some of the later videos. So yeah, it's kind of sneak peek to talk about what we're going to get into. So when this was built, we were working with Liquid Development. They created this little character right here, and inside of here, there's a lot of code that's kind of going inside. Some of this is default. You'll actually get with Unreal when you create a third-person character template, like actually how to move around, how to sprint. May not necessarily be in there. We did add this, which is kind of fun. The death stuff, this is not actually in there by default. And then your movement input, this one is in there by default. But there is something, if you move over here to this side, you will notice that we have flying controls in here too. So I would like to take another video and kind of talk about this stuff. It is already set up. Something else that's actually kind of built inside of here too is if you go into this teacher marketplace and dive a little bit deeper, you can actually go into the character. You will notice that there is, let's see if I can find it. It's been a while since I've been in here. All the animations for the character, these are all in here as well. The materials for it, the mesh is actually in here. The textures for this one are all in here. And there are, let's see if I can find it. There it is. So there's this other character. So this Epic character LD. So this is the liquid development one. If you open this one up, you can kind of see what they built into it. So flying information, there's like a quick interaction that's actually in here. You can actually hold to do different kinds of interactions. You can actually celebrate. Now, our game, the way we built this, doesn't have this in it. I went ahead and pulled it out. I left some of the flying controls in there though. And when we're actually playing the game, this character isn't being loaded. It's our character that's being loaded. Now remember, when we were talking about, the actual character and the controller and the game and the HUD, this character you can kind of swap out on the fly. And when you're playing games like Grand Theft Auto, or you're playing games like Mario is a great example, actually, the character can change its properties and how it actually works. So, when Mario jumps, into a specific suit, he's got different kinds of abilities, and that's kind of changing the way the character. So it's just swapping one of the characters out. In Grand Theft Auto, or in games like, what's another good one? Any game where you're actually going from the character into like a car or some kind of a vehicle or a boat of some sort, you're actually changing the character and the way the character is actually being driven. So you're kind of swapping these things in and out. So if you were to dig into this and, kind of figure out how those things are actually connected and work together, it can get really complicated, but it's also really rewarding because you're like, oh, now I can be a bird. I can turn into a fish. Maybe I need to turn into a mermaid to actually get from one place to another, like, because I need to be able to go underwater. Drink a magic potion, pick up enough coins and buy a new set of armor. You can actually change the way the character looks even. So some other little tidbits that are slowly kind of bubbling to the surface within this project that are buried within there. So don't be scared to just jump in and start playing with it. Make a backup. Make a backup by all means.
Exactly.
But you can definitely go through and play with a lot of this stuff.
So that is like, maybe now is a good time to talk about some of the stuff that we're going to cover, that we can cover in future lessons. Like this whole world you created from really like a small asset base. I mean, there was probably no more than 10 or 20 assets in total.
Yes. Yeah.
You built this entire world from.
So I just turned on a filter down here is what I'm doing. So I just wanted to find the levels, and you'll find that, let's move this up here a little bit. You've got like, level 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is something we can kind of talk about too, how these levels are actually integrated into this level. They're kind of like sub levels. They're just little parts. There are also a couple other little things hidden here too. As you're building game mechanics for games, and I'm going to open up this one. It shouldn't take too long. Do we have that one? Roof kit corner. I don't need to save any of that stuff. That's fine. This little world right here, I'm going to zoom out. This is where we were building all the game mechanics. It's just a tiny little world that's just got all the little pieces in it. I was making sure that my doors were actually going to work, that the checkpoint was going to work. I've got a moving platform. Actually, this is the moving one. I've got a little box over here that ends up taking the character out. So after you pick up certain items, it'll actually do what you want it to do. Because I don't need a huge world and have to run from one place to the other. It's just a whole little level that you can actually kind of set this stuff up. There is also inside of here. Oh, I got one shader left. Okay, I'm not gonna hit it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to subscribe and follow for our future announcements. Make sure to check us out on Twitter.
See what it's gonna do. It's so close. Come on, shader.
It's always that, right? I like when the progress meter says it's 100% complete and it's still there, still working.
And I was going up to 45. You would. Dang, cool. So close. All right, I won't open up this one because it'll probably slow it down again. Nope, we're gonna go this way.
Shoot, look at that. It went up to 1,000.
I think it's trying to compile this world shaders too. Is it going to do it? Okay, I think I totally just goofed it up. So anyways, this marketplace one right here, this is the world where all of these pieces came from. They're kind of like, it's kind of like the Lego set, like the bag of Lego pieces. That's where all of these came from. And there's a bunch of them in here. There's, architecture pieces. Let's turn that filter off in here. There's floor pieces and roof pieces and all these other little sections. Well, yeah, I think I totally goofed up the shader thing. It's just going up now. All right, well,
Yeah.
once that's actually completed, you will get a little exe, and I can actually show you what that looks like down here, way at the bottom.
Take one out of the oven. We have to do that.
Oh, I don't actually have a shot of it. So anyways, I was thinking that there was a shot down here, but it is literally a little thing, and you'll find a folder that says window no editor in it, and inside of there will be the hour of code exe. You can literally just double click on that exe, and then you can start playing the game, and there you've got it. It's just a little folder, and you can take that folder and set it on anybody's machine, and they should be able to play it without any problems. So.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So we're probably not going to get to the end there. We're going to have to go eat some food or go for a walk or something like that while the compilers are shading, like you guys can do. I guess that's a good note if you've watched this far and haven't done this with any classes yet to kind of make that happen. Is there a command to execute compiling shaders manually while like when the class starts?
There might be. I don't know. I've always just let it sit. We always just take a break and walk away from the computer for a while.
Right. Okay.
But where's Tom? Tom would know.
Yeah. There's got to be. Well, the internet will also be our friend. So this is a good heads up for, maybe seeing if we can cover some of that. I'm assuming if you modify the world, though, you'll introduce new compiling and stuff like that based on the lighting and everything like that. So.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us and for watching this recorded video all the way to the end. Sorry we couldn't actually get the exe for you to see us playing, but why don't you send us a screenshot of your exe that you're playing? Mm-hmm. You can tag us on Twitter at Cleverlike. You can subscribe for more videos. We're going to be looking at this project more deeply. So you've got us youtube.com/Cleverlike and twitch.tv/Cleverlike. And we'll be streaming some more. Gatlin, you got a wonderful comment in here basically saying, are we going to do more? Because I'm hoping to learn more from Gatlin. He's a really professional instructor.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. I do what I can with what I got.
Professional instructor. So that's perfect. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, your lessons are awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Adios.